board, Reverend Fathers, and gentlemen. I am glad to have this opportunity to pay honor to Monseigneur Nicholson, and also glad to have this opportunity to do some good, I think, to ourselves by contemplating his great qualities and achievements. I'm always terrified, especially recently, that I'll be too long-winded, as they say. I'm also afraid to tell a story, because most of my good stories were told many times around this part of the world. But looking around tonight, the story I'm going to tell, I don't think you ever heard it, because I can't see anybody here that ever attended any of the things that I speak at. This is my apology and my tenderness about talking. I was in New York on many occasions to adult education meetings, very large things, 5-day affairs, voted by the Carnegie Corporation. And Dr. E.A. Corbett, the Canadian of the Canadian Association of Adult Education, was generally there with me. One morning, Dr. Corbett came in late to a big forum. A man was speaking, and he tiptoed in and sat down behind a tall man who afterwards turned out to be a Mexican, or rather a Texan, I should say. So he sat down and he listened attentively for a while, and he couldn't make very much out of what the man was saying. He tapped his friend on the shoulder, and he whispered to him and said, "How long has he been talking?" The fellow cupped his hands and sent back the message, 35 minutes. He listened for another 5 minutes. Then he tapped him again. He said, "What's he talking about?" And he cupped his hands again and he says, "Don't know, ain't said yet." So I'm going to plunge in medias res, as Dr. Hugh Gillis would say, and talk in headlines, because I have a warrant that this is going to be a very short thing. No long philosophical introduction is gradually leading up to so anything. I want to say that in 1905, the curtain went down on one scene in the StFX drama, and another one came up. The people who were around that time, the celebration of the 50th anniversary was in 1905, 2 years late. Somebody slipped up on that. And around, right after that, when Dr. McPherson took over, the group of able men who were behind, took charge of StFX, decided that the men were the important factor in an institution of learning. So they picked out bright men to send them away to be trained, to give them careers in scholarship. And it's to the eternal credit of these men, I think, that they went strong in science. The natural tendency would be, of course, classics, the languages, philosophy, especially scholastic philosophy. But they selected this science, which wasn't in too good order, as you remember. There was a kind of a supposed conflict between science and religion. And they picked a group of people, among them Dr. Nicholson, Patrick J. Nicholson. I didn't know Dr. Nicholson. We graduated, Father McDonald and I, in 1905, but I suppose he caught the spirit, the 1905 spirit. And we heard great things about him. He's supposed to be a very brilliant student. He was picked for physics, if you don't mind, and sent to Johns Hopkins. And then they picked Connolly and sent him to Munich for biology. And they picked R.K. McIntyre and sent him to Washington for chemistry. And they picked Miles Tompkins a little later and sent him to OAC in Guelph for agriculture. And Dr. Hugh and Miles Tompkins got going in Mount Cameron. And incidentally, in 1905, at this celebration, the priest of the diocese had bought Mount Cameron. That would be about equivalent in those days when the chief contribution that we'd make to StFX would go around and gather up some wool and some eggs for a contribution from the people. It'd be equivalent today to somebody come along and buy the whole of West Street and everything in that side of the town, make a present of it to St. FX. Well, this Renaissance that followed the 1905 celebration threw up these men. Now, they went away to study, and other things happened. Men began to show up to give money. Dr. Tompkins and Dr. McPherson and Dr. Hugh were on the job here. They were St. FX in those days, but nearly. And they began to get some money. Dr. John Summers came along, and Neil McNeil came along. And a man by the name of Lyons in Ottawa gave $10,000. Mrs. Reddy, that's Mary Reddy's mother, gave $5,000. Priest in the diocese, the old rector announced, gave $20,000. They speculated for a while. It turned out to be Father Bill McDonald. They called him Big Bill up in Pictou. And things began to move. We heard this story in Rome, both these smart young men being away. And we talked nothing else. We had nothing else to talk about except philosophy. We couldn't read the papers, so we talked it day and night all the time, St. FX. And we came home, and everybody talked St. FX. We were talking day and night about our hockey teams, about our debating teams. St. FX was in the air, and the science hall was going up. Money was coming in. New things were happening all around the place, and everybody was enthused over the prospects of the future. Now, in that excitement, after that, as that went on, these men came back. I needn't tell you the story. Dr. Nicholson, well, not the only scientist, but I'd say he was the first, and had more to do probably with the development of St. FX's scientific place, which today, although a small institution, has a reputable career, a good reputation in Canada and this continent in the realm of science. Our boys do well. We'd expect that from these people, but something else happened also. This scare about the materialism of science didn't materialize. As a matter of fact, when they came back, Dr. Nicholson particularly, showed a spirit of super spirituality, that he became not only a scientist, but his influence on the spirituality of the place is tremendous, all down, as everybody knows, who know the history of St. FX for the last 40 years. And we built up through Dr. Nicholson in a great way, a great esprit de corps among the students, among the alumni, and among the people generally. I suppose there's no other man, there's no supposing about it, there's no other man who stands as high in the estimation of the alumni as Dr. Nicholson does. He knows more people than any of the rest of us. I suppose that's due to his characteristics. First of all, he had great ability in every line. He had great industry. He had great dedication. He was the personification, the concrete embodiment of the St. FX spirit. Now, that paid off. Later on, when we were looking for a rector after H.P. passed away, Dr. I should say McPherson, we unanimously picked Dr. Nicholson for rector. And he's been, these years, given a great account of himself. He's these qualities of industry and his general ability gave St. FX a great standing, as you know, among the universities of Canada. They looked upon him. I travel a lot around Canada, more than most people, and they say to me many times, well, what's the name of that new able rector you got down there? Some people have said to me down in other parts of Canada. So he favorably impressed them. I think that the second part of my opportunity, or rather my opportunity to do some good to ourselves here, is to make a synthesis for you and with you of what I consider this St. FX spirit is, with an eye to develop the formula for the future. We're closing one phase of the life where we're beginning the second century, and just as in 1905 we began the second half of the first century, and we've had a fairly successful career. I think we can take off to greater heights of achievement in the future. So that I'd like to point out that the StFX spirit is founded first on the idea of possibilities. That the people around Antigonish never didn't know the word impossible. People connected with StFX College. If the difficulties are as high as Mount Olympus, we still face them. We saw the possible. Dr. Connolly used to entertain us in the old days when we were younger by taking off Father Tompkins. Father Tompkins had a cane. Everybody that was educated across the pond came back with the idea of a cane. When you go out in the hike or you have a cane. Well, he always carried a cane. And Dr. Connolly would pick up the cane and the gloves and start off sideways with a dash. And he says, sure we can get $1 million. Sure we can get $1 million. Well, that was the spirit. Now, there's this idea of seeing possibilities is intimately connected with the other phase, the great phase of StFX, I think, and that's humility. Scientific humility. That we don't close the issue, and we don't tolerate people who have, through prejudice or preconceived ideas, said this is the answer. We only back the things, the eternal verities, in the natural order and the supernatural order, and we're pretty charity about the interpretation in both orders. That's science. Because we can get fooled in our interpretation of a lot of things. Now, philosophically, scientifically, and even we can misinterpret religion. So therefore, if you ask me what is the secret of Antigonish, the progress that we've made may not be big in comparison to some of the other bigger places, but it's big in comparison of what we were. I would say it's the attitude towards knowledge, and it's the attitude towards life. That we're not bigoted, prejudiced people, that we are willing to investigate possibilities in any line. In the old days, it's a strange thing, isn't it? The people who insisted so much on classics, on scholastic philosophy, on the old curriculum. After all that old curriculum was man-made, wasn't it? Aristotle's thinking was man-made. So was Thomas Aquinas, God bless him. But still man-made. But science is God's stuff, right out there in the open. That's his truth written in nature. And there can be no conflict and no objection to holding yourself open in that field. So that we really, in the past, we exalted man-made stuff over God-made stuff. Now then, StFX, I think, is the first, especially among Catholic institutions, the first in this country to break that, to hold an open mind and be sanely and philosophically open-minded and scientifically open-minded. Now the next thing is that we don't believe in hic et nunc stuff, if you know what I mean, to say direct action, I call it. We believe in direct action, of course. But we believe in indirect action, which is a sign of wisdom. To set the scene and let nature do the work, so to speak. To get a master plan. And anybody today living in a country as big as Canada, in this northern hemisphere, endowed as we are, with the blessing of a cold climate, chastening, where we build great people, where great civilizations rise. There's only one other country in the world that could match us, and that's Russia. We are the great challenge of the world. Now, to get a master plan, to manipulate the forces that build civilizations should be our aim. And while we go out and talk to people directly, exhort them to do certain things, specifically here and now, we in our wisdom, will lay the foundation for a plan that will automatically produce results in the long stretches of the years ahead. I think that's the next thing. And we have that. The next part of the synthesis of the StFX synthesis to me is that we got to teach the people, get the people of this country persuaded that their own personal destiny is identified and intimately linked up with the destiny of this institution. As institutions go, so will civilization go. That the individual effort, while it's wonderful, individual development is wonderful, unless the Canadian people and the sector of the Canadian people that we represent realize that their destiny is intimately connected with the destiny of an institution of learning like this, we will never be great. I used to say, when trying to get money in the old days campaigning for the hospital, I say, it's as important that you build StFX College and St. Martha's Hospital as it is that you should feed your children and put a round of shoes on them. In the last analysis, getting more evident as the time goes on, isn't it, in the great evolution of the human drama? Isn't it more apparent all the time that we've got to immunize ourselves, and we're not going to do it by just talk? We've got to set the things, create the institutions, manipulate the forces that will make the world safe for democracy and for sanctity. And third, if we do that, before I leave it, when the people, all the people of this country, see in this institution and other institutions the instruments of their progress, the things that will enable them to achieve their highest destiny, then they will come across with the money. And that's the secret to money. When they say, this is my institution, this is my country, and it will work automatically, and that's what I say, that's indirect action. Get the people to the point where they can see the necessity of the thing, and it will come. Then, finally, that we must go out to the people, if we're going to, in our master plan, and do something to build the people who are coming here, who are going to be the students. The students of 1980 to 2000 should be our specific problem right now. How to build the men and women, the boys and girls, who are going to come to this institution from 1980 to 2000, to build them up, to get more people, to get stronger people, better off people, holier people, all over this country. And then to go out and help to fashion the boys and girls that are going to be the leaders, so when they come in here on this campus, that they'll be capable of absorbing the wisdom that we have in all our curriculum in here. That is the extension philosophy, isn't it? That is today the new idea. Ladies and gentlemen, if we're smart, if we're as smart as we ought to be, we'll make a master plan that will lick anything in the world because we've got truth on our side. You can't beat that. If we go out and do, or as energetic and do. Now then, I think that a master plan that is adequate to do a job supplies the dynamics, his own dynamics. There is no man. A man has to be a Clyde horse type of creature who, when he sees a great objective and the adequate means to the end to achieve that, in terms of human greatness and human goodness, he must be a dead clod if he doesn't put everything he's got into it. Now, I want to say on this day, that's why I'm glad to speak, that we were happy and we were lucky in the choice of our scientists, in the choice of the first men that we sent away, and all the ones that have come after them. I think we can assure Dr. Nicholson, Monseigneur Nicholson, going out, that we'll carry on in the best traditions. We will profit by his achievements, his example, and that I want to say this is a farewell to him. He's not going away. He's going to be with us yet, going to an important part of the country, the most important, as a matter of fact. And he's still got to be an educator, and he's still got to do a lot of things for us. And I think we can assure Dr. Summers, the new rector, that we're all behind him. I think he's given enough evidence he has the ability for the new job, the days to come, just as the boys in 1905 took off with great enthusiasm to a new era in StFX. So we're facing a new century, and we're facing it with a great gang of men. And before I leave this, I want to pay tribute. There's not only the priests here, but perhaps the greatest tribute to Dr. Nicholson is the quality of the laymen and the woman and the lay women that we have here, that we're all proud of their ability, proud of their characters and their dedication, and we welcome them, and all of us together. If we think the thing out and do what we can as we will, there is nobody can touch us, because we have a good cause, and we have a great people, and we have a great country. Gentlemen, I'll propose the toast a little later on. Thank you.